Then we went up to Jordan, and our friends in Jordan told us once again, what did they say? They said,
you should go to Iraq.
the people in Iraq would love you. And so, next thing we knew, Jordanian friends were saying, we found you a ride.
We didn't have the right credentials. The Americans at this point had asked the Jordanians to guard the border.
We went into an office in downtown Amman in Jordan to see if we could get some kind of papers that would help us cross the border into Iraq. Really, the only people being given some kind of permission to go into Iraq at that time were card-carrying journalists. Although we were, in some sense, journalists, we were actually musicians. So we sang a song for the folks in the office and discovered that we were given a musical passport. In fact, as soon as we sang a song, it felt as though we suddenly materialized as human beings. And several people jumped up to help us and called some people at the border to try and pave the way for our crossing. When we actually got to the Iraqi border at 3 o'clock in the morning, we found that our Iraqi driver was too impatient to get onward across the border to allow us to find the contacts that had been set up for us. And so by 5 in the morning, it was apparent that we wouldn't necessarily be allowed to get across the border unless we did something musical. The Jordanian soldiers at the border brightened right up as soon as they heard us singing, and they said, "Oh, you must come and talk to the captain." So we did. We went around the back side of the building into an office where a very tired-looking captain was sitting, and it didn't look very hopeful to us when we saw the look on his face. So we sang him a song. The moment we sang him a song, he leapt into life, and he called a few of his partners in to listen to us sing. And then he sent us back around to the front of the building, where we sang again for a larger group of people, who began smiling and laughing, and pretty soon it just became obvious that we would be able to cross the border.
One line of that song to the people down there, their eyes like opened up wide, and they said, "Oh yes," boom, gave us a stamp. You should go, you should go. It's very easy. Music is a passport, literally a passport that you can use to get all kinds of places, open on all kinds of doors. And it's 500 miles from Amman to Baghdad. And right after you cross the border into Iraq, this is what we saw. And it's very, very difficult to see this and know that all these people had just died in these bombings and on this road. When I was driving through there, you know, tears are streaming down my cheeks. I had never been in a war zone before, and it's quite shocking. Many Syrians were killed in this bus here. This road had once been a big 4-lane highway, but you had to drive around all these craters. When we got into Baghdad, the city had many buildings burning. The looting was at its height at that time, and the smoke just filled the air. It was very hard to breathe there. This is a telecommunications building that was bombed by the United States. So at this time, there's no electricity, there's no water, there's no telecommunications, and no stoplights. It's not like in the Arab world people really look at stoplights anyway, but
it's another Indo-European idea.
The Marines were downtown. A kind of a small area downtown that was cordoned off by that razor wire stuff. We tried to talk to some of the Marines. They are not allowed to talk when they're on duty. We couldn't find any that were off duty. They were all behind the lines that you couldn't cross. This young man was very pleasant. He was really quite sweet. A lot of the thing that strikes you, you know, is that, you know, most of these guys are like 18 or 19 years old. And some of them were being very polite to the Iraqi people. Some of them were learning a little bit of Arabic and saying salam alaikum, you know, peace be with you. Others were being extremely rude and using all kinds of foul language. And, you know, it was very hard to hear and see that. There's one word in Arabic that every time you speak about something in the future, you say, I will see you tomorrow, inshallah, God willing. God willing, I will see you tomorrow. And you can't speak of the future tense without saying that word. It's ingrained into their culture and who they are. It's like the will of God it reigns. So like when the bombing was happening, people were like, if it is the will of God, I'll die. If it's not the will of God, I'll live. They didn't go to bomb shelters. They went to bomb shelters during the first Gulf War, and we bombed one of the bomb shelters and killed a lot of people there. So, inshallah, God willing, I'll make it. And so they just watched. But what we did is the same thing we always do.
أنت تعزف عود؟ أيوة أنا عازف عود وهي تغني.
And we played music. As we're walking down the street, people ask, do you play that?
And when I sing this song, I feel like I'm still there, singing with these people in the streets of Baghdad. It's a song about a young boy. He wakes up one morning, he looks out in the village, and he does not see the beautiful young lady that he's in love with. Where is she? He goes out in the streets and he asks the holy man on the street corner. He's too shy, so he asks some stupid questions about religion instead. But the holy man is very telepathic. He knows exactly what the boy wants to know, and he finally tells him, son, she left. She's from a Bedouin family, and their family packed up and they left yesterday afternoon. So the boy bursts into tears, and he runs out into the desert, and the full moon is rising over a palm tree. And he sings this song, comparing the beauty of his missing beloved's cheeks to the beauty of the full moon rising. Now, as we stood on the streets of Baghdad and we sang this song, people would gradually realize that we do know actually this song, which has always been a favorite of theirs. And they would close their eyes. The city was full of smoke. You can see the smoke in the air. But they would relax and they would sway back and forth and they would sing along with us. Soon we pass the oud around to the crowd. Everybody plays the oud pretty much. Everyone's got one at home. Other people take their turns singing. People are rushing up to us saying, "We need to see more people like you. Come meet my music teacher. He wrote a book about the Arabic maqamat." I'm like, "Oh, I did too." And so we were flooded with invitations to go visit and hang out with all these beautiful people. And the street vendors were offering us little shish kebabs, and of course the endless offerings of little cups of tea that one always receives in these parts of the world. This gentleman came up, he said he'd heard us sing. He trusted us. He said, "I want you to take a message to Bush. Tell Bush to fix what he broke and go home." And everywhere in the Arab world we had been, there was no support for America going into Iraq. Nobody thought it was a good idea, but this guy in the gray hair said, "You know, but it is good that Americans came and got rid of Saddam. That is a good thing." And we wandered down near where that pedestal is. You can see where that statue of Saddam Hussein had just been pulled off its pedestal by the tanks. And we felt completely safe wandering through the streets of Baghdad, and we were feeling sorry for the other people who had come who felt, because of the war and their mission, that they had to think of the Iraqi people as an enemy. And there, this gentleman in the yellow shirt was driving by, and as if, "Oh," he says, and he pulls over and he stops, and we sing some more songs. So we stayed on the streets. Little boys were playing soccer in the rubble in the alleys. This trip to Baghdad was a landmark because it was at a time punctuated by war. But our real interest is in showing you the Arab world, which is, of course, much bigger than either Baghdad or Iraq.